What's going on, everybody? And welcome back to the Canadian Ball Fanatics YouTube channel. Thank you guys for tuning in to another BC Lions post-game edition. Although, folks, I will be 100% honest with you right off the jump. There is not too much positive to chat about after that one. The Lions lose a very disappointing one once again with a big lead in the fourth quarter, unable to close it out, and they lose 34-33 to the Ottawa Redblacks in stunning fashion, as some might call it a comeback. Can't believe I'm even using that to describe this game right now, considering where we were to start the game in the fourth quarter. But as always, folks, we will chat about that in a little bit. Cole, solo, as always, should just get used to it at this point, as I believe Blake is pretty much a weekly show only kind of host now. That being said, I will be chatting about my thoughts on this one. Sorry, folks, just moving around my background. As you guys can see, for anyone that's a regular listener or tunes in frequently, maybe thrown off by the background here, as I am in a little bit of a different spot. I've recorded here a few times before, mostly on the weekly show and other content, but decided to do it in the kitchen as it is a little bit cooler in here after the game, especially after the heated way that one ended. I cannot believe the BC Lions gave that one away to the Ottawa Redblacks. But we will chat about it, as I mentioned. We will get into it here shortly, as we do on all of our post-game reports. Win or lose, we come on here, we give our honest opinion. And as hard as it is, as ugly as some of these losses are, and there's been in our 3-year existence here, there's been some other ones I can remember. I believe it was the Toronto season opener, let's see, 2 years ago. Was a tough one, might even been 3 years ago. I think of Winnipeg, in Winnipeg. I think of some of the playoff losses we had post games after that. But this one arguably is, I would, and maybe recency bias is playing a little bit into this one. This one is up there in my opinion. But as I said, we'll chat about it in a little bit. Before we do, of course, folks, if you guys are enjoying all of our content here on the channel, as we are busy, I know the Lions are coming off a bye. Feels like it's probably been a little bit quiet in terms of Lions content here on the channel, which has been a little bit unfortunate this season, but just due to kind of other obligations, as well as I mentioned, Blake just kind of being MIA this year, not really kind of committing fully to the post game show. But that'll be something kind of we have to discuss in the offseason. Maybe we look towards Blake just being a weekly show guest. But that being said, if you guys are enjoying our content here on the channel, please be sure to leave a like on our videos. Comment down below, let us know how you guys are enjoying them, where you guys are listening from, and what you guys would like to see on the channel. And of course, most importantly, subscribe to the channel. When you guys subscribe, hit the notification bell. You guys get notified every single time we go live or upload a video on the channel. So let's get into this choke job. I don't think there's any better way to describe this one than that itself. The Lions start out, I wouldn't say fast, actually. They started out quite slow, but they're able to generate I believe it was 3-0 lead there early on. I believe it turned into a 10-0 lead after scoring a touchdown, and led for the entirety of this game. And they end up giving it away in the fourth quarter with Ottawa. 18 points scored in the fourth quarter by the Ottawa Redblacks. So, as I mentioned, no other way to describe this other than a choke job, as the Lions were up after the Seven McGee punt return touchdown. It looked like to be curtains that not even the Lions defense and this team could fumble this one away. And obviously they didn't fumble it away in the game, but they fumbled this game away in many ways. Whether you want to chalk it up to, I know there's a lot of people that were quite frustrated of the penalties that were quite costly, and not only 5-10 yard penalties, 15-yard penalties, drive extenders, giving the Red Blacks first downs when you have them in a hole, you have them off the field, whatever it may be. The Lions continued to, for whatever reason, taunt after the whistle and do just dumb, excuse my French, or dumb shit. And that's where we are, folks. If you couldn't tell by a little bit of the tone already, I feel like I'm not alone here in just kind of being sick and tired of this team. And we're 1 week out of Labor Day. For me, and not to get hot takey, whatever you want to call it, for me, this game kind of stuck a fork in the Lions season. And absolutely, they could go on a run and crazier stuff could happen. 6 of the 9 teams get in the playoffs, so absolutely they're not dead. But this team is not good enough to win a Grey Cup. That's basically what I'm saying. Is that stick a fork in this team? My belief in them winning a Grey Cup this season has hit zero. The gas bar, it had got to 3/4 tank full, half a tank full, quarter tank full. Oh, ease on, or gas light just came on. Probably should go get some gas. We've run out of gas, folks, and for me personally, a game like this is just kind of, and maybe not even a game like this. Obviously, this one is more the more recency bias, and it sticks out because of the fashion. But to do it basically back to back versus Toronto Argonauts, where they started the game maybe in kind of reverse fashion, where they do have a fast start, 13-0 lead, piss that lead away, end up getting smoked by the Argos going into the bye week. Come out of the bye week, they get a lead on the Red Blacks. They get a sizable lead in the second half. Looks like, man, okay, I think the Lions are going to be able to do this one. Looks like they're going to be able to hold on to win this game. Well, boy, was I wrong, because the Lions found every way, as I mentioned earlier, to lose this football game. Penalties were the most, I think, frustrating part. And then some of the I wouldn't even say maybe coaching decisions, or I guess you could somewhat say coaching decisions. The also frustrating part is the flashes that we see, and it's mostly too, as well as like the complementary football in the right time, right? Where the Lions in the first half, their defense is playing well, getting some stops, getting pressure with the defensive line, waiting for the offense to kind of get going. The offense gets going, they get a lead, playing well off each other. And then when things go wrong, they just both go wrong for each other. But to have a 27-10 lead with, 20 minutes of game time left is still a ton of time left. But when Seven McGee took home that touchdown, that punt return touchdown, which the first return touchdown for the BC Lions in 4 seasons, or 4 years, 5, or would have been 4 years, 5 seasons, could have been 2021, I believe I heard. Lucky Whitehead was the last player to return a touchdown on special teams for the BC Lions. And it's like, you couldn't have closed it out at 27-10 with Dustin Crum as the Red Blacks quarterback. And man, if Shane's watching this, he tunes in, and I know he's a big Red Crum believer. I just personally am not. The guy is a decent player, but man, what he was built up to, and this whole, that's why I couldn't believe I was using the Crum back. I'm not on that train. He definitely deserves a tip of the cap for the victory tonight. He performed well. This is, I think, the best game that I've seen him play as a professional, in my opinion. Now, I haven't watched all of his games, but I believe tonight was his career high in passing yards. I believe he just got over it with 301, if I'm not mistaken. I believe I checked. Believe he also chipped in with like an incredible 50+ yards on the ground as well, which is very effective. He also had 2 rushing touchdowns, which kept the Red Blacks in the game, you could argue, in the first half. So as I mentioned, definitely got to tip your cap to Dustin Crum. Yeah, 24-32, 301, 1 passing touchdown, 2 rushing touchdowns. He actually had 69, he had 70 rushing yards pretty much. So he counted for 370 total yards of offense with 3 touchdowns as well. So Dustin Crum, tip my cap to you. You played well. That being said, I still don't believe that he's quite made up to the guy that he is. I feel like maybe in the media and maybe in some of the Red Black fan base, but that's not to slight him at all. He deserves credit after this victory. But at 27-10, when he turned the ball back over to Dustin Crum, I thought, okay, not 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 again. They wouldn't let Dustin Crum do it again, right? Not the BC Lions defense isn't that bad. And maybe that sounds actually a little bit worse too. I feel like that's maybe taking too far of a step towards Dustin Crum, slighting him a little bit too much. So I wouldn't go as far as to say that. But I thought 17 points, you would be able to at least close it out enough where that if they cut it to a 10-point game, a 7-point game, that you could get one more stop where that the offense could say get some points on the board to put it back up 13 if you were up 10, put it back up 17 if you were up 10, whatever it may be. And as I said, just at the right, or in this case the wrong time, the BC Lions forget how to play complementary football. And in the fourth quarter, they offensively they couldn't get nothing going, and defensively they couldn't get anything going. So I mean, it's kind of like beating a dead horse like over and over again. That's why tonight's going to be probably a little bit of a shorter one. We'll see how that works out. Because I always tend to say that, and then it ends up going an hour. But as you can see, we're going to go all over here because there's not much good to cling on to. I'm sick for Nathan Rourke, to be honest. We're going to waste this season away, and the narrative will be in the offseason that Nathan Rourke couldn't do enough, which is the farthest thing from the truth. If the CFO was named the most valuable player, I would wholeheartedly be standing on the table of Nathan Rourke should be the most valuable player. It's not, and I think rightfully so. I tend to agree with the most outstanding. The wording, I think, is key. Meaning the best player in the league, most outstanding versus most valuable. Where Nathan Rourke, in my opinion, is clearly the most valuable player in the CFL this season. Has he been the most outstanding? No, I don't think so. I would say he's probably on the verge of top 5. He's like that 7-4 range, in my opinion. But that being said, he hasn't got much help from his team. I mean, if we can lay off the defense for a second, how many more goddamn balls are going to hit the receivers in the hand, and it's going to end up going the other way? I mean, not to come down on Hatch too hard or too much here, but Hatch, we got to catch that ball, brother. And Hatch is having himself a fantastic season. As I said, it's hard to really harp on Keon Hatcher for too much, considering what he's done this season. But the ball hits you in right square in the hands, and it ends up going the other direction. How many times does that happen? Too many. And that's what leads me into just absolutely sick for Nathan Rourke. Sick. That his defense lets him down this bad. His receivers do from time to time like this. Maybe not his receivers too. I think a Stanback last year in Ottawa, the pick 6 by AJ Allen. But Nathan's not to be, left out of the conversation too. I tweeted at some point in the game. It's just been very odd to see how many times Nathan's missed high this year. And as I said, Nathan has been by far the Lions' best player. I would, if the award was most valuable player in the CFL, I would have him as most valuable. So this isn't to be too critical of Nathan Rourke, but it's been very weird of how many times it's been, right? It'd be a little bit of a different story if it was like, okay, once in a blue moon type thing where it happened once every 7 to 8, 9, 10, whatever games it is. But it's almost every game where we see like, 2 or 3 like fairly high balls. I know. I believe it was. I don't know if it was. Forget who it was, but Lions. And I think that tweeted the one in the first half, the McKinnis corner route. That was a good 2 or 3 balls over McKinnis head that he thought it was catchable. But I thought there was at least another 2 or 3 balls once again that was just like very uncharacteristically high from Nathan. That being said, am definitely not, blaming the loss on Nathan by any means tonight. Just kind of some of my observations throughout the season of just very weird because we didn't see that in 22. We didn't even see it last year in him coming back from the NFL. And I know how much he works with quarterback coach Rob Williams, and he's in Vancouver, so he's able to work with him in the bye, have him out of practice, all that sort of stuff. So it's been curious to see that it hasn't really been like something that has been fixed. I guess is kind of my biggest curiosity. From they obviously see that in film and would I would think talk about it, but I see my man Bobby is tuning in here in the chat once again. Bobby, salute to you, my friend. I appreciate you for tuning in after that one. I have not gotten to the field goals yet. Started with a few of the positives, or at least some of the positives that we can cling to, which there's not many. Honestly, it's just kind of Nathan work. And within the positives, there was a few negatives that have kind of crept up this season. So, gonna be one that definitely we'll talk about in the off season. But that being said, um, that kind of puts honestly an end to most of the positives for tonight because they're just overshadowed by once again the lack of, I feel like, confidence from the defense. After first half, defensive line was able to get, pressure on Dustin Crum. I believe they finished the game with 4 sacks. Should have been probably about 5 or 6, as there was a few. The Kemektere one got taken up, it got erased due to a face mask. I believe there's another one due to illegal contact. So should have been probably about 5 or 6, if we're being honest. And the pressures were really exciting to see in the first half, where they were getting to Dustin Crum very quickly to get the ball out of his hands. And then, as I said, with the timing of the complementary football, they do it good for a quarter, they do it good for a half, but then they completely abandon it, getting away from it when it matters most. And in the fourth quarter, when it mattered most to get Dustin Crum off the field to get some pressure on him, they were nowhere to be seen. And yeah, I know they talked about it on the broadcast, and BC started to lean into, and maybe that's also something we could talk about here in a little bit when we get to Mike Benavides, and we will. But the lines ended up kind of turning into, rushing 3, dropping 9 into coverage after a certain point there. I know I don't think it was in the third quarter after they were up 27-10, but I would say as soon as they got into, under 10 minutes in the fourth quarter, a lot of, the defensive snaps were rushing 3, had Jackson Finley in the game as that extra safety, as that extra kind of just defensive back body, excuse me. And, 3 versus 5, I know at times they also brought Ottawa, speaking of and they brought in an extra blocker at times, so it's a tough ask to get some pressure, 3 versus 5, 3 versus 6, whatever it may be. But considering how effective it was in the first half, and maybe you can even say in the first 3 quarters, when it mattered most, when the money was on the table, when the chips were pushed in, when it was 33-27, there was no pressure. There was no getting to Dustin Crum getting the ball out of his hands fast. There was no sacks. So as nice as that is, it's kind of turned to it's moral victories mean nothing at this point. Nothing. Especially in a loss. In a win, maybe you can say, you know what? They put together a good 3 quarters. They put together a good half. And I'm sure we would be talking about that. We would, matter of fact. But when the game got close, when it mattered to get home, they couldn't. And it's unfortunate too, because obviously Betts and Kemektere were playing a lot of snaps with Levi Bell kind of, starting to get up to speed, just being signed to the team this week. So, would be curious to see how many snaps he was even out there for, as I don't believe it was too many, to be honest. I didn't really see him too much other than maybe a handful of snaps that I recollect. But um, other than that, the Lions dressed the 40 tackles, and then they dress another defensive tackle that backs up Matthew Betts that isn't a defensive end. So those guys were playing a lot of snaps and getting a lot of burn. And to be honest, too, a lot of our pressure outside of the, I referenced it earlier, the Kemekure sack that got taken away, but due to face mask, a lot of our pressure was coming from the inside, from the interior. Jonah Tavai, once again, was very effective. He's been a promising player for the BC Lions this season. Marcus Moore got a sack. He got home very quickly on his. I believe that was the one that could have been taken away though by illegal contact. I can't remember off the top of my head. But some more, good quality line play from the interior of the defensive line for the BC Lions. But it's really that edge that is inconsistent in the biggest moments. So, to kind of get, I guess, out of the first half, as that was the best half, I guess you'd say, for the Lions, obviously, because they lost the second half. But to get into the, third quarter where it starts and the Lions actually decide to, instead of taking the ball, they decide to go with the direction and look like that could have arguably played off for them, as both teams were kind of feeling each other out for the first little bit of the third quarter. And then the Lions get hold of the ball and they go on a drive down the field. Nathan Rourke with a beautiful touchdown to Justin McInnis, as I don't know whether it definitely was some sort of coverage bust, or I guess you could argue scheme bust, as they did show it on the TSN replay for everybody that did watch it at home instead of at the stadium. But Lions had 4-by-1, so four receivers to the right with one to the left. They ended up, I believe, going empty and ended up going 4-by-2 with bringing James Belair out of the backfield. And they had the four receivers to the right side of the field, and Ottawa only had three defensive backs over there, with the safety coming over to the left side of the field, kind of occupying the running back out of the backfield and helping out in the boundary. And Justin McInnis ran straight, kind of like it's kind of like a seam, but a bender route. I know that bender route's kind of like a dig that I believe it was Glenn Studo that's kind of, named it that bender route that Justin McInnis has done over the last few years of kind of, to me, it's kind of like a deep dig or kind of like a deep in. He calls it the bender, but I would kind of refer to this route as kind of like a bender route, where it's like a seam, but you kind of bend into that soft spot of that kind of, cover two, that palms look, where the middle of the field, kind of they have that middle field open look. They did on this one, but I think more specifically they had it kind of a middle field open look due to Nathan holding the safety to the left side of the field. He starts on the left side of the field, giving, I feel like, just a little bit of help. Nathan keeps him over there, looking left, understanding he has McInnis coming free down the pipe. The Red Blacks were also in a man coverage, as they were also bringing linebacker Lucas Cormier, Canadian Lucas Cormier out of Mount Allison, actually, who had himself a pretty pretty solid game. Wouldn't say fantastic or anything, but an interception, was making plays on the defensive side for the Red Blacks for sure. So love to see that. But he came clean, and Nathan kind of understanding that, having to buy a little bit of time, hold the safety left for as long as possible, and at the last second, flip his hips, throw it back down the seam, or back in the middle of the field, and Justin McInnis was wide open, was able to walk in for the touchdown. And literally moments later, I literally got up, I got a drink of water, came back, and the Red Blacks were literally punting. The ball was in the air as I sat back down on the couch, and Seven McGee, Sevens, was able to return a touchdown. I guess I shouldn't have said the positivity ended quite yet, as there was a few more positives to chat about. But Seven McGee, I feel like it is also a tough one to give him. How am I going to kind of word this without kind of being um, he also does. I don't have the most confidence in him when when the ball's in the air, and especially when some of the punts have a little bit of longer hang time when the ball's up there and allows the coverage unit to get downfield. Where his hands really haven't been the most reliable. We saw it in the game today, right? Where he had the kind of the double catch. He obviously comes down with it. It's kind of no harm, no foul kind of thing. But definitely makes up for it in that sense. But like moving forward, yeah, I don't think he's the end all be all. We have our guy in Seven McGee as a punt returner, especially with the amount of weapons around the CFL that are returners. And I feel like that's kind of a play you got to be in. That's got to be kind of the market you got to be uh, in this upcoming offseason. I know you might play around with some of the receivers and whatnot, especially with Hatch and kind of the season he's having and already kind of just chatting about possibly wanting a raise in this past offseason. So maybe that's something you have to work out as well, and some other weapons at receiving core. But I feel like the receiving core. I believe I saw the stat of all of them over 450 yards, pretty effective. James Butler, hopefully you can maybe work out a deal with him. The offensive, skill positions or weapons are, satisfactory. The offense definitely hasn't been the problem this year. Maybe in moments they could definitely be better, but go after that X factor that is a returner this offseason would be kind of my big thing. But we'll have that conversation in the offseason. I think maybe my brain's getting a little ahead of things because, as I said earlier, stick a fork in the BC Lions because I feel like in terms of winning a Grey Cup, this team's just not built for it. And I know that sounds crazy, but 5-7 record, but nobody pulling away in the West with crossover still being a possibility. Going into this week, it was kind of always a glimmer of hope to hold on to, right? Of like the Lions can turn it around. Nobody really has pulled away. Nobody has, as good as Saskatchewan and Calgary have looked. Hamilton in at times have looked. They've all looked beautiful as well, right? And this is kind of the straw that broke the camel's back, the final kind of nail in the coffin for me personally, anyways. Now I could go on to be proven wrong, but that being said, I really just I don't think so. I think this team is kind of who they are, and I've been seeing it for a few weeks now of one or two steps forward, three or four steps back, and this is who they will continue to be. That being said, though, have to give our kudos and shout out to Seven McGee for being able to flip the switch like that, and what should have been arguably the TSN turning point for the Lions, and it wasn't to close out the game, 27-10. With in the third quarter, I know I said earlier, 20 minutes to go of real game time, so there's 5 minutes to go in the third quarter. That's a game you have to close out. You have to close out. And I believe it was with 7 minutes to go when the Red Blacks cut it to a 10-point lead, if I'm not mistaken, where could have even actually been a 7 point. Could have been a one-score game too. I'm blanking on when Luke Wilson made an appearance on the broadcast, and he mentioned of being down there on the field level. Nathan comes out on the field, very calm, cool, and collected, very poised. I believe it was only up to one score. And he mentioned that the Red Black sideline was pretty fired up, that they had sensed the momentum had kind of flung to their side, and he was going to be interested to see if Nathan was going to be able to capitalize. And, he led them into field goal range that drive, if I'm not mistaken, that was the drive. And Whitey ends up missing the field goal, which is a bummer for sure. Was a little bit longer for Whitey's range. But that being said, you could feel the momentum shift. And for the Lions to not be able to close it out was just like, man. As I said, I thought at that point, like, man, not the Lions can't be that bad to give this one away. Again, 2 double-digit leads back-to-back weeks. Obviously, with the bye in there, choked away. So let's get into it because I feel like that's Bobby's. I feel like the lone man tuning in on YouTube right now, and he's probably been waiting for it. I mentioned this on Twitter, but I really didn't understand a few of the decisions by Buck Pierce. Once again, we chatted about it 2 weeks ago on the weekly show of I'm not out on Buck Pierce. I am not screaming for him to get fired. I'm not one of those fans. But we are most definitely seeing some, learning curve, the trial and tribulations of a first year head coach, I guess you could say. The kind of, learning on the job type of stuff when I said on the weekly show, there's not, you don't have Mike O'Shea. You don't have, Coach Younger as a defensive coordinator to patrol your units anymore, and you're not just the offensive coordinator. You have to balance everything now, not only the offense, the defensive decisions as well. That at least I hope those decisions, well, honestly, they're not, at least some of the challenges, but anything that's going on in the headset defensively as well, you should be at least tuned into. I would hope, special teams as well. I would know you are. Because Buck Pierce is the one making decisions of when to go for it on third down, when to kick it, when to keep the offense out there. There was another one earlier in the game where they maybe could have, and it wasn't maybe the territory to go for it. That being said, the one that kind of made me the most frustrated was, you know, I reference like KYP, know your personnel. It's kind of like a saying in the coaching world. I feel like you got to like know your personnel, know your team, right? Basically, is what that means, and like read the room as well. Your defense hasn't stopped a leaky faucet all season. It's clear that momentum has flipped to the Red Blacks. You get a second down, and I believe it was 10. You throw all hooks, 6 yards. You throw 6-yard hooks. Javon Couture, Nathan Rourke completes pass to Javon Couture. I believe he's about 3 yards short. It's about 3rd and 3. And the Lions decide to kick the field goal. Attempt the field goal, excuse me. They end up missing. Ends up being points for the Red Blacks the other way. And it's just, it's like, man, like, you can't have that much blind faith in the defense that they've shown you time and time again that this is who they are. Not only do the numbers say that, the eye say that, buddy. The film says that. And if it doesn't to you, that's a problem. Because this defense needs to be reloaded, retooled, whatever you want to say, whatever the correct term you want to use, reload, retool. Matthew Betts, Jonah Tavai, Christophe Boyu. I would somewhat include possibly Micah Alway in that conversation. I think I've liked what Mike has brought. He is getting older, so it is tough of when does that cliff come? When does that drop off start to come? That being said, other than that, clean house. And honestly, Boyu is not a locked comeback either. As I've said a few times, he is not this regime's draft pick. And as talented as I think he is, as much as I think he's only going like this, something to monitor, folks. Jackson Finley drafted by this regime, highly traded up to go get. Sorry, folks. Don't want. I'm sure you guys already heard a few meows in the background. Don't want you guys to hear too many more. As my little cat wants to make an appearance, but he's not allowed to tonight because he's in a little chatty mood right now. But that being said, cat throwing me off. I forget where I was going, but chatting with I was chatting with the field goals and the decision making by Buck Pierce. I guess to kind of bring it back to my point of like not being out on Buck Pierce. I don't want him to be fired. I don't want him to, um, you know, wear too much of this. What I want from him is to learn from these situations. That obviously not in season are you going to, I feel like, maybe learn on the fly. He clearly hasn't, to be honest. Because as Bobby tweeted back at me, it's been the BC Lions motto this season, and it's been choose to lose. Because in these situations, time and time again, he chooses to kick field goals, send his defense back out there, and it's sending them to the slaughterhouse, setting them up, and giving the other team a nice, easy, underhand softball to just smoke out of the park. And it's like, dude, please learn from these situations because we have struggled and the challenges. Once again, I don't know what he was challenging on the interception that hit Keelan Hatcher right in the hands. Ends up being an interception the other way. He challenges for defensive pass interference on Justin McInnis, I believe, who was one of the receivers who were blocking. Didn't really understand, I understand why the Red Blacks got the ball and scored on the next play because of how close the field position was. But man, like, if nothing else, Buck Pierce, please learn from these situations. I think this will be a better football team next year. That's the only shitty part. That if you're a Lions fan, I would just, and maybe this is kind of is like, I feel like maybe the easy way out, or maybe you even want to call me a hater, but I would not have too much hope for this season of, crazier stuff can happen, anything can happen, whatever you want to claim, whatever cliche you want to cling to. First of all, they're not fluking out versus Saskatchewan or Calgary. And I don't even believe they can beat Winnipeg if Winnipeg beat themselves. And that's a pretty crazy thing to say because Winnipeg has, I feel like, had an up and down season. Just lost Dalton Schoen for the season due to a torn ACL. So going to be another big missing piece for them. That being said, the Lions just continue to shoot themselves in the foot. They continue to beat themselves a lot of the time. But at some point, you are what you eat, right? That's the saying. You are who you are. And they have done it week in week. We're not in week 4 anymore, folks. It's 14. So the last thing on kind of like defensive conversation, coaching conversation, the penalties, man, and how undisciplined the Lions have been this season. And undisciplined in 15-yard penalties, not just 5, 10-yard penalties. It's been big penalties that have cost them in huge ways. As I said, extending drives, keeping the Red Blacks on the field, giving them first downs, huge game-shifting penalties, dumb penalties as well, extracurriculars after the whistle. Edwards Cooper. And Edwards Cooper's waving to the crowd. Minute 30 to go. We won. Oh, we won. We're up 6 points with a minute and 30 in the CFL. Oh, shit. I'm probably going to be cut. Probably won't have a job next year. Hopefully he looks like a fucking idiot, just to be blatantly honest, in film. I really pray that that's on there. Because it was on the TV copy. Go back and check. When the Lions got to stop, minute 30 left, he's on there waving to the Ottawa Red Blacks fans. Oh, goodbye. Newsflash, pal. You let Khalil Pimpleton run straight by you. Talk about KYP. Talk about know your game, know your time. There's under 30 seconds left. You're rushing 3, dropping 9, and you give up a deep ball on a double move to like. I like. I'm glad I'm not monetized, number one, but how fucking stupid. Like, just to be honest right now, folks. And that's how I'm feeling, to be completely 100% honest. That even in a situation like that, the Lions are just so pathetic right now. That's who this team is. So that's why Call me a Debbie Downer, call me whatever you want to call me. This team is finito, finished, whatever you want to use. Obviously, we will continue to cover and give you guys our post-game reports, but other than that, I feel like this team is not going anywhere this season. This is an unfortunate waste of a very quality Nathan Rourke season. As I mentioned, he is not one that is left without blame. But this is going to be a season that, unfortunately, the narrative will be wrongfully. Nathan Rourke didn't do enough when it was the defense is incredibly piss poor once again. So, where do we go from here? The Lions host the Ottawa Redblacks next week in BC. A game that, like, how do you move forward in, you get a win next week and you're 6-7. You take that step forward just to take it right back, because that's who the BC Lions are. They had a absolute underbelly, soft underbelly too. Soft underbelly part of their schedule, and they pissed it away. Unbelievable. And it's unbelievable too because, huge shout out to Amar Doman, owner of the BC Lions. Not only sick for Nathan Rourke, I am sick for Amar Doman. Everything he's done, not only on the field, the money he's paid for players on the field, the money he's paid for stuff off the field. All he deserves is a winner. And all he's gotten is disappointing playoff losses, and this season has been horrible. Maybe horrible is a little bit of a is dramatic of me tonight, but what uh, and obviously, every team is, if you didn't win the Grey Cup, it's a bad year, Cole. This one isn't going to be even close, in my opinion, and it's going to be a waste. The offense is pretty effective, pretty efficient. Number one rusher, number one receiver, top 3 quarterback. Offensive line hasn't played that bad. And down the drain for nothing. For nothing. So I think that's kind of all, to be honest, folks. I don't want to stick around too much longer. It's 9 o'clock. I'm tired. I've been up for way too long, to be completely honest. I want to enjoy the rest of my Friday evening before I get into bed and enjoy a full day of CFL football, as we have 3 games on to watch tomorrow and then a full day of NFL football, as I am so excited for that, honestly. As it was, to be completely honest, folks, it was kind of nice to, when the Lions were winning, especially too, to kind of had the laptop out, had the Chiefs and Chargers game out, to kind of go back and forth, watch both games. I really enjoy that, honestly. And then, bam, it's like, I should have just watched the Chiefs game. But no, just kidding, of course, folks. As I wanted to continue to advocate for Canadian football and how high quality product it is. And of course, tomorrow, not only is it a full slate of CFL games, as there is 3, but there is going to be U Sports action on once again. And of course, you guys can also find the BCFC and the rest of the CJFL kicking off on Saturday. I will not be on the call, as the VI Raiders are on a bye week this week. So, of course, the rest of BCFC is in action, so you guys can tune into BCFC TV if you guys aren't in any of the local towns or cities to check out the games live. I'm hoping to get over to Langley actually next week, as as I said, the Red Blacks are in town to play the BC Lions. I hope to be at that game next Friday night, and then able to parlay that into spending the night over there and turning it into a 2-day 2 football game kind of weekend, which I'm looking forward to, and then checking that one out, because that'll have some playoff implications, as the Langley Rams and BI Raiders are both sitting at 2 wins on the season, and the winner will likely sit in the 4th spot after that week. So Will be interesting, but if you guys enjoyed, please be sure to leave a like on today's video. Comment down below. Let us know how frustrated you guys are after that one. Let us know where you guys are tuning in from, as well as let us know how you guys are enjoying all of the content here on the channel. As I mentioned, I know some of the BC Lions coverage is slowed down, and that's my apologies, folks. As I said, we partnered with the BCFC this year, so it's been pretty busy as we were trying to keep up with our coverage and our posts on a weekly basis. So we've been busy over on the Instagram a little bit more, but the following has been terrific over on the Instagram. If you guys are not following us quite yet, I would encourage you guys to head over to the Instagram, follow us at Canadian Football Fanatics, as we are nearing 4,000 followers. We are also, folks, nearing 1 million views for the month on our Instagram account. So head over to the Canadian Football Fanatics platform on our Instagram as well. You guys can find us on Twitter at _CF Fanatics over there. So be sure to tag along on our social media platforms. As I mentioned, leave a comment down below. Most importantly, subscribe to the channel. When you guys subscribe, press the notification bell. You guys will get notified every time we go live, like tonight, or we upload a video like inside the BCFC, some of our YouTube Shorts videos, some of our post-game interviews, post-practice interviews, you name it. We still got a ton of content coming up on the channel weekly. But other than that, folks, a disappointing one is a understatement. I don't even know how to describe this one. A epic collapse, a meltdown, choke job, I think is personally the best way to describe it. But the BC Lions fall to the Ottawa Blacks 34-33 in Ottawa, as these two teams will turn around and play in 7 days' time, but this time in BC, and we will hope to be in attendance, and then, of course, follow that game with another post-game report. Until then, folks, hope you guys enjoyed, and we'll catch you guys next week.